Good morning. We will continue to wait a few more minutes while folks join the Zoom call. Thank you. I'm just going to give it another minute or so, and then we will begin. Okay, I think we'll start. I think there are others joining as we're going, but let's go ahead and begin the session. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Stay at Homecoming. My name is Tracy Barlock. I'm the Vice President for Advancement at the college, and I'm delighted that you're here to join us for our State of the College, or what we would normally call our President's Hour if you were on campus joining us. And speaking of campus, I happen to be at my office here on Mount St. James, and I know Father Boroughs will mention this too, but it's an extraordinary day here in Worcester, and it just makes me feel like we're missing you even more having you on campus, because the campus is quiet, but it's stunningly beautiful right at the moment. We began our formal homecoming events last night with our annual In Hoc Signo Award ceremony, where we honored 6 volunteers for their extraordinary work and service to the college. And despite the virtual format, the evening was really special. It was warm and authentic and emotional, and it reminded me again about why this community is so special. It was a moment of great pride for our honorees and for all of us who work at the college and benefit from the care and the love and the hard work of our volunteers. We have about an hour for our call today, and in addition to Father Boroughs, we're grateful to be joined by members of the executive team, and Father Boroughs will introduce them when he is finished with his remarks. We know that you're excited and maybe even a bit anxious to hear about news of the college. We certainly have lots to talk about. Many of you submitted questions when you registered for the event, so we've collected those, and the Q&A function will be available during the remarks. So if you have those, we will be monitoring those, and we'll spend some time at the end with Q&A, spending some time with Q&A. So let me now turn it over to Father Boroughs, who is with us, to give us some remarks.
Thank you, Tracy, and everyone, greetings from Mount St. James. As Tracy mentioned, it's about 55 degrees out there. There's a light wind blowing. It's beautifully sunny. And right about this time, I'd be putting on an extra sweater and heading down to the football stadium. So it is an odd way to be celebrating and a gathering of alumni and parents on a fall weekend. Now, I'm coming to you from my office in Fenwick Hall, and there's always a joke about this office. So when I meet male alums of a certain age, and they come into my office and they say, "Oh, Father, this has changed." And if they're of a certain age, I can say, "Oh, well, then you were here before, and that means you were in trouble." In earlier days, the visits to this office by undergrads was because of a problem. But that's all changed now, and I really welcome students and families and others to come by and visit when they're in town. I'm so pleased that so many of you, alumni, parents, and friends have joined this webinar. And I'm happy to be joining you for Stay at Homecoming. And particularly pleased about this opportunity to bring you up to date on the college and some college news. Let me begin with a thanks. I understand how challenging it has been to stay connected in our world over the past 6 months. We all miss seeing family and friends and coworkers, and we miss seeing college classmates and colleagues. And as fall approaches, when there's such a natural anticipation around the start of the academic year and traditional fall activities, we especially miss coming together as a community. The fact that you are joining us this morning is a signal of your care, concern, and interest. Your engagement is very important for strengthening the college at this most challenging time. As Tracy indicated, I'm really pleased that members of my executive team are joining me here, and they are available to answer questions at the end of this session. You did meet Tracy, our Vice President for Advancement, and we're also joined by Margaret Friege, our Provost and Dean of the College, Michelle Murray, our Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students, and Marcus Blossom, our Director of Intercollegiate Athletics. So let me start with news about our students and the start of the fall semester. As Tracy indicated, and as you know well, Mount St. James is fairly quiet at the moment, as all of our students are taking classes remotely, and there is limited access to all on-campus facilities. Faculty and staff have been encouraged to work remotely, and there are no formal athletic programs taking place at this point in the fall semester. Yes, life is certainly different. We do have 225 students living on campus this semester who are seniors who need access to labs or studios to graduate, students with special needs who are not able to study appropriately at home for various reasons, some members of the men's and women's basketball and hockey teams. Many of the seniors in those teams are already living off campus, but are here for training should their season begin at the end of the semester, and some of our international students. They are all still taking classes remotely, mostly in their residence halls or apartments. And all of these students are being tested twice a week for the virus. We have over 600 students living locally, many in apartments on College Hill or downtown, and many also living with families who are nearby. Most of them have requested to have access to campus, and this is being granted with the agreement that they too have to be tested twice a week. Access to campus is prioritized for those who have jobs on campus that require their physical presence, those who need labs or studios, and in the next few weeks, the other students who have applied will be granted access to use the Dinan or science libraries. Both have limited seating because of social distancing. Students will be allowed to make appointments to use the exercise equipment, which frankly will be highly limited because, again, of social distancing. I think we have to have something like 14 feet between different machines, and therefore that reduces the number that are available for use. And of course, students can exercise outside on various fields. We can accommodate up to 72 students who wish to participate in the liturgy in St. Joseph's Chapel. We do have masses on Sundays and during weekdays, and appointments can be made to access studio space for academic work. The Hogan Center is open for COVID testing, and Cool Beans is open limited use with the Grubhub app. So as you can see, with all these mandated restrictions, it is extremely quiet here. Now, our faculty have been doing extraordinary work over the summer to prepare for new modes of teaching, using internal personnel and external consultants, participating in workshops and learning to use new platforms and technologies to deliver coursework and to engage our students in a rich academic program. To prepare for the remote transition, the college made significant financial investments in new learning management system, new cameras, audio equipment, and large video monitors installed in classrooms to support hybrid teaching. We have invested in personnel and digital tools as well as new communications platforms. Our faculty and staff have done extensive work to keep students connected and to build community in this virtual world. And we've surveyed our students to help provide guidance for both class structure and co-curricular activities. I think you would all be amazed at the quality and frequency of virtual programming that is being provided through our academics staff, our student life and student affairs professionals, through the chaplaincy, and through many clubs and alumni groups. And so one thing is certain, no matter what the conditions might require of us at this moment, our students are receiving the excellent education and development of mind, body, and spirit and community that is the hallmark of Holy Cross. It is different, but it is excellent. Let me shift and talk a little bit about admissions. We sent out our regular decision acceptances on March 21st at the height of the pandemic. By May 15th, we had an extraordinary first-year class of 850 students and a total enrollment on campus of 3,150 students. It was a class that was geographically, ethnically, and economically diverse. Well then, fast forward to September 5th, after our decision to have a remote semester, and after several versions of financial aid repackaging to accommodate important economic stressors related to the pandemic. We now stand at 735 first-year students and a total enrollment of 2,992. Approximately 90 students, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, are on a leave of absence, and 74 first-year students who have requested a deferral of admissions are currently planning to enroll in the class of 2025. You know, we had anticipated that we might lose 10% in total enrollment this year. So this total is only a 5% drop, and I think it serves as a very good sign of our brand strength and our growing reputation. We must, however, remain focused on keeping our deferred students engaged while also aggressively recruiting the class of 2025. And we must continue to work aggressively on our plan for the spring semester, because we know that our model of teaching and engaging is meant to be in person. I am keenly aware that if all of you were on campus today, you would probably be tailgating on Fit and Field and attending a variety of homecoming events, including athletic contests. We do miss having our fall teams in season, but Marcus Blossom, our coaches and staff in the athletics department are working around the clock to ensure that we are engaging our student athletes. And the Patriot League will be making a decision about winter and spring sports in the next few weeks. Our Board of Trustees met last week virtually, and much of our conversation was focused on our academic planning and also on financial planning. Members of the board are working behind the scenes and with my executive team to ensure that Holy Cross weathers this crisis. There will be ramifications. The pandemic has created economic uncertainty for so many of us, and we, the college, are not immune. We are monitoring all current operational and capital expenses, and we have implemented spending and hiring freezes unless they are mission critical. We have implemented benefit reductions, and in some cases, we have implemented furloughs based on functional changes here at the college. Like so many colleges, Holy Cross is highly tuition dependent. Our financial underpinning is solid, but we are also vulnerable depending on the longevity of the crisis. And we also understand we cannot afford to remain stagnant. While it's quiet with so few students, what we do hear is the hum of trucks and cranes as our construction projects continue and are making remarkable progress with the string of good weather. Actually, there are crews working here today on Saturday. The Joe, or our new rec center, looks from the outside as if it will be done in a month or so, but inside there will be continuing work, and we expect it to be finished sometime in November. What is also really beautiful are the reseeded lawns, lighting, and rows of new trees that have been planted. And Gate 6, that is the upper gate up on College Hill, is fast becoming an amazingly attractive and welcoming entrance to the campus, rather than skirting around behind the old field house. Our new Performing Arts Center is all framed and walls are now going up. And we held the official topping off, mostly virtual ceremony last week to acknowledge the last steel being placed. When you come to campus next, you will see that the Joe, the PAC, and the Luth Center together have totally transformed the upper campus into a very beautiful and welcoming space that we will be proud to display on campus tours when they can resume. These projects and so many other investments in our academic programs, financial aid, mission, and faith initiatives are made possible thanks to an enormous generosity and participation in our Become More campaign, a 7-year-long effort that ended on June 30th. Our initial goal was $350 million. We then, at one point, raised it to $400 million. And in the end, we raised just over $420 million. More than 65% of all alumni participated in this effort. And this is at once a joyous and yet a somber moment. It is one we've all been eagerly anticipating and for which we are proudly thankful. Yet amid the current pandemic and social climate in our country, this moment also prompts us to pause and reflect on what we've been able to accomplish and why. Never had the college aspired to a goal of such magnitude. And now our belief in the importance and value of a Holy Cross liberal arts education, the kind that develops mind, body, spirit, and community, is essential to address the needs that are so evident in our country. It has never been more imperative to empower our students to develop into effective ethical leaders, engines of social inclusion and possibility. I want to thank all who partnered with us, who accepted the call, who participated because you share in our core mission. The success of the campaign is also a blessing because it gives us some flexibility to pivot our messages and energies around the most important priorities now: the annual fund and the increasingly importance of financial aid and emergency funding for unanticipated expenses we and our students are incurring. Throughout the overwhelming challenges of these past months, our community has demonstrated remarkable strength. Not surprising, wonderful things happen when we come together in mutual support. Members of our community made generous gifts to assist our students in the upheaval from the pandemic and to help them. Some of them needed help to get home, and many had unexpected financial needs. Along with regional club volunteers and career mentors, alumni and parents rolled up their sleeves to support alumni and students in their own communities. Many of our Black and African American alums have counseled and encouraged our diverse students in this time of violence and repeated calls for social change. With the cancellation of many internships, many of you stepped up and created virtual internships to support our students over the summer. You've engaged in our virtual programming and events that have kept the Holy Cross community connected and strong. And no doubt, we face significant challenges ahead. We believe our next few years will be uniquely challenging, but we hope uniquely creative in response. With your support, we will move forward with hope and compassion. We will continue to offer opportunity to find ways to help others realize their unique potential and to respond to the needs of our time. And most importantly, we will educate tomorrow's leaders who will create a future with resiliency, faith, justice, creativity, and vision. And so now I'm going to hand it back to Tracy, who can moderate the questions and responses that we hope to engage over the next several minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Boroughs. I can ask my colleagues on the executive team to turn their cameras on. Great, nice to see you all virtually on this beautiful homecoming morning. Thank you for attending and for joining us as we have a good dialogue here. There have been a few questions coming in through the platform, but I also have some in advance. So I'm going to begin with you, Margaret. I thought this was a really great question. Do you think there will be any unintended benefits or outcomes for the Holy Cross community during virtual learning?
Yeah, that's a really great question, I think. I think there will be a number of unintended benefits. So one of the very interesting things as faculty were thinking about their courses and how they might transform them for the fall semester. a lot of what they had to think about is, what are the things that I'm doing in my class and what are my goals for my class and how might I achieve those goals in a different way? And so once people start thinking in that direction, a number of things open up and a number of new opportunities open up. So I would expect that as faculty continue to develop their courses throughout this year and beyond, there are a number of new kinds of assignments, new ways of engaging students that they are going to continue going forward. So, for example, one of the things that faculty have made great use of is the ability to use Zoom as a way of creating breakout rooms and creating spaces for students to design their own study groups. And I imagine that that's something that we're going to continue to leverage, right? To think about how we continue to engage students in smaller groups so that they can support one another as peers. One of the things that they've done is create different kinds of assignments. So students are doing more work around creating podcasts, creating digital work that enhances their learning and also enhances their understanding of the world. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities that we're going to be able to take advantage of as we go forward.
Margaret, maybe a funny note on that. In the Jesuit community, I hear my brothers talking at dinner about the courses they took over the summer, and they get into very technical things which go way over my head. But interestingly, people made remarks like, I don't think we'll ever have a snow day again.
Yes.
With all this technology, we can create classes now and communicate at a distance. I don't think our students will be happy about that, but our faculty will be pleased they won't get behind during the semester.
That's right.
If I could add, Tracy, to that, I think one of the unintended consequences has nothing to do with academics at all, and that's the reinforcement of how much students really value the community here at Holy Cross. And so we're launching a platform that will allow students to find each other geographically when they're at a distance from campus. And so just hi all, that's my daughter who's peeking in. Not right now, thank you. So, just, no, not right now, thank you.
I think all mothers who are working understand well, and dads too, these little interruptions. When we have executive team meetings and everybody's at home, Michelle's not the only one who has small children, and I must say they provide some comic relief for the rest of us when work gets a little bit too serious.
Yeah, comic relief for everyone else, but it's like raises my blood pressure. So I think there is an unintended consequence, right, of students finding the value of gathering together locally and connecting with their peers who are surrounding them geographically. The other unintended benefit from being remote last semester was the high level of engagement students continued to have with the college over the summer. As events around the country were unfolding, that students felt really comfortable in the online platforms to stay engaged with us and to be involved in really important conversations about what was happening. So that was a surprise and really thrilling, actually, to see.
Thank you. Marcus, one for you. How are we preparing for the spring sports season? And will any of our students who were unable to have a season, for instance, some of our fall sports, be able to take a 5th year if they missed their athletic season?
Good questions. We're doing a couple things to prepare for the spring sports season. I guess the first thing is we were granted the opportunity for a lot of our students that are off campus to have on-campus access to train starting actually today, starting today. So, I think we have over 300 of our spring and fall sport population that has the opportunity to train a couple times a week on campus. So that'll help our spring sports start to get ready for the season. Currently, the spring sports season is still scheduled to start on time, but as we know, things could change, and the Patriot League Council of Presidents will weigh in on a potential start date here after the winter sports season is decided. But yeah, it's moving in quite along. The student athletes are excited to get back, and we're working towards getting together as a team as quickly as possible. A lot of our student athletes that aren't close to campus are still staying connected to the team via Zoom. That's one of the unintended consequences as well, kind of to add what Margaret and Michelle touched on. Normally, say our incoming freshmen really don't get together with their teams until probably the fall or right before the starts. But they've been able to be together and at least meet each other over Zoom for weeks now. So when they do come together, they tend to have a stronger bond than otherwise. So that's where we are right now.
Great. Father Boroughs, is the Joyce Contemplative Center open? Is the chapel open? How are we helping our students engage in an active faith life? Certainly, thank you. The chapel is open. Because of social distancing, and I know this sounds a little hard to imagine, but because of certain rules, we can accommodate 72 people in the St. Joseph's Chapel, which seems awfully small to me. That said, we are live streaming Mass every Sunday at 11:30, and any of you are welcome to join us for that experience. We began that Mass with the Mass of the Holy Spirit, and it coincided with the Feast of the Holy Cross, the Exaltation of the Holy Cross, so we combined them together. And a week, was it a week or 2 weeks? Isn't it interesting how you lose all concept of time these days? We had that a couple weeks ago, and it was live streamed to all of our alums, and it was wonderfully attended. So that's also a service for everyone in our community, and maybe another unintended consequence is that alums and parents can also join us for those Sunday liturgies. In addition, it's interesting too, over the course of the summer, we had a retreat for incoming students. 85 students made a virtual retreat together. We've had a number of chaplains develop programmatics online that help students, faculty, and staff as well stay together and pray together and reflect together. There are, I can't remember the exact name, Father Hayes was telling me at dinner the other night, he's working with a group of students, kind of a squad of students who are meeting regularly to talk about issues of faith. And actually, in some ways, sometimes the attendance is higher because people, you know, when you, in a typical school year, you have multiple things going on at the same time. These can be tailored where you have flexibility, and they're finding attendance at a lot of events is much higher than anticipated. So we do have daily Mass in the chapel, and we do live stream Sunday Mass at 11:30, and retreats are continuing, but we are not at this time using the Contemplative Center. Part of the challenge there has been the fact that the air filtration system is a collective rather than individual room by room, and so you have to be very careful about bringing people together and the number of people that the state allows us to have together. So right now we have not been able to use it in that way. But we look forward to it because it's become an extraordinarily special place on our campus. On average now, at least 65 to 70% of every class have attended an event, including all of our athletic teams and our Montserrat classes, and others have attended events at the Contemplative Center, which are contemplative in character, and have really helped them appreciate the beauty and the serenity and the resources that are there. Great, thank you. Michelle, a couple questions from, it looks like they might be student parents or alum parents of first-year students. What are we doing to keep that class connected and engaged? It's understandable that our sophomores, juniors, and seniors who've been on campus before and have friends and are, you know, they have ways they can probably connect with each other. What are we doing specifically for our first-year students to keep them engaged, and especially from a mental health perspective?
Sure, I think that's a really good question, and certainly, you know, our first year students had the really disappointing experience of not completing their senior year in high school the way they had planned, and now they are starting college and not in the way that they had planned. We have something that will be, I'm going to be kind of cagey about it because it's a little surprise that will show up in the mail to all of our. There are a number of different ways that we're looking at this. So you heard Father Boroughs mention the retreat that happened that was specifically for first year students. And then the first year students are enrolled in their Montserrat program, and their Montserrat clusters are doing programs together. Their Montserrat classes are doing programs together. And then the RAs are doing virtual residential communities. So, you know, all of our students received a roommate and a housing assignment, and so they have an RA associated with that. And those folks are pulling that group together so that they can begin building community, much in the way that Marcus was talking about that's happening with the sports teams. So those are some of the ways specifically for first year students that we are engaging them. And then they also, you know, we also did the Gateways, obviously the orientation program. And whenever we are back on campus, we will see to it that the class of 2024 has an appropriate welcome to the campus, because that is going to be critically important. The last piece that I want to say specifically about the class of 2024 is that this has been an important group for our alumni community, and so they have created a video that is a virtual hug from a whole slew of alums across many years to reach out to the class of 2024 and let them know that the entirety of the Holy Cross community is behind them. So students will receive that video next week.
Great. Margaret, what are the plans for January and spring? I'm assuming this is probably from an academic, you know, calendar perspective. And then I'm going to sort of add another question on to all of us, which is, what are we learning right now about what's happening here and what's happening elsewhere that will help us pivot toward a positive opening in the spring? Do you want to start with January and spring semester?
Sure. So, so the January term is a short term. It's a 3-week term. And what we've asked faculty to do is think about opportunities for immersion for our students. So you can't take a standard course and just cram it into a 3-week term. So you need to think a little bit differently about what a 3-week immersive experience might look like. So the faculty, for example, in the sciences are thinking about what a really intensive lab course might look like. Where the students could really spend some time doing some serious research work in the labs as they're moving forward. Other faculty are thinking about different kinds of arts immersive experiences. And so those courses, there'll be a very small number of courses, and they'll be targeted at giving students who may be able to take advantage of either the spaces on campus or the resources on campus, as well as opportunities for students who may be able to have an immersive experience in a remote fashion. That is, they'll be using community-based learning opportunities as a way of giving students some different kinds of experiences. The spring term is scheduled to start on classes are scheduled to start on February 1st, and it will look as normal as a spring term can look under the conditions. There will be no March spring break. The first break in the spring term will be around Easter, and it's scheduled to finish at about the same time the spring term was scheduled to finish before, with the idea that we would be able to have commencement the Friday before Memorial Day as we do. So that's what the spring term will look like. I expect the courses in the spring are going to be a combination of in-person and hybrid opportunities, as well as some online opportunities. Again, I think that it's likely that we will still need to have 6 feet of distancing in classrooms. And so we're going to have to think about, how we manage the space on campus to be able to have, but we're beginning the conversation with faculty about how to create those in-person opportunities for students as we look ahead to the spring. I think there are a number of things, if I can kick off the conversation about what we're learning, there are a number of things I think that we're learning, both from our own experience and from the experience of peer institutions. I think the fact that we have our testing protocol set up and we have our testing program set up and we're running people through that program and thinking about how we monitor students' compliance with the testing protocol, how we make sure that we are able to move students who may test positive into quarantine and isolation. I think there's a lot of things that we're learning from that process, as well as for employees, for faculty and staff, to be going through the testing protocol and thinking about what that means. I know that I am in contact with my fellow provosts, both in the Patriot League and from the Jesuit schools and the Northeast liberal arts colleges, on a regular basis to see how things are going and what they're seeing. And I think that that learning is going to feed into our planning going forward as well. So,
Tracy, maybe just to add a little bit, we have not yet made a decision about the spring semester. All of the executive team are working on plans now, very much along the lines of what you've just been discussing. What have we learned? What are we learning? How could we do this? What will be the challenges? For one thing, the unknown factor of what will the influenza season do in combination with the COVID season? And how will we plan for, if we can be together, which we hope we can, and that's what we're going to plan toward, we have to recognize there's uncertainties about all of this, and safety and health come first. That said, like Margaret, I'm meeting, and I know Michelle is, and Marcus, we're all meeting. I'm meeting at least 3 times a week with different groups of presidents to talk about what we're learning. And in that group, there are presidents who, like us, have gone to a remote model. There are presidents who have some small cohorts on their campus, and there are some that are operational. And everybody has some variables. The one variable that we all share in common, among others, is how do we communicate, particularly to our students, the reality and the importance and the dangers of the COVID virus. Students of a certain young age, are often thinking they're invincible, and many of them are. The challenge, of course, is that many of the rest of us aren't, and understand that well. So how do we help students have a life that's not just another form of confinement? How do we have life on our campus on the one hand, but that is socially responsible, healthy, and respectful on the other? And that's a learning curve. And what I'm hoping is that watching our culture and other campuses struggle with this, and watching many of them have had to close down after they opened, how do we all learn as a culture, an American culture, the importance of masks and social distancing, all the things our alum, Dr. Tony Fauci, is communicating? Because if we don't learn it, we would be under the threat of having to send everyone home again if we got to a certain level, a certain percentage of our students who are ill. And that's also our faculty need to have confidence that students are being respectful so they feel comfortable enough to get into a classroom again. So these are all the sense of social responsibility, and there's no easy answer to this one. The campus started off in the fall, before we even opened, with a party that had a lot of COVID cases as a consequence, just like you've seen at many other campuses. It was very unfortunate. And at least a high percentage of the students who got COVID were the roommates of the students who attended, not the people who did. So these are the ways in which having a socially responsible consciousness is critical if we can open again, because we know from all the data that we're seeing that there's likely to be a resurgence. It's likely to have a challenging influenza season. And how do we then safely engage one another on campus with those realities? And it's going to take everybody sharing in that responsibility.
Let me just add before we change subjects a little bit, because there are a number of questions coming in about sort of people wanting a little bit more definition around the spring. And I just think it's important to note, because all of us on the executive team meet pretty much 24/7, we are very much working on a plan. We're not just waiting and seeing. It's an active, we are working very, very hard to do all that we can to ensure that we have everything in place, and we're learning from others and we're watching others, but we are indeed working very hard on this. So while there's nothing in writing, go ahead.
We hope we can make a decision by the early November, late October, early November. But again, we've watched all the uncertainties, so it'll have to be a prudent decision, understanding the contingencies that we're facing.
Yeah. Margaret, let me switch a little bit, because there were several questions about how we're recruiting the class of 2025 in this virtual age. What are some opportunities for students or for those on the call that have perhaps sons and daughters who might be interested in the college? What are we doing to ensure that Holy Cross is on their radar?
It's a great question, and it is another area where I think that we're learning a lot that we're going to take into the future. as we think about recruiting a class going forward. So the admissions office has done a spectacular job of pivoting to a virtual environment. And we not only had to do that, you know, as we're thinking about recruiting, but we had to do that to yield the class that we yielded last spring. So we had no on-campus open house. We had to do everything virtually. We had to reach out to students in a variety of ways. We spent the entire summer creating a number of opportunities for prospective students to engage with both the admissions staff, giving information sessions about applying to colleges. How do you write an essay? How do you think about, you know, what colleges you might want to apply to? Why might Holy Cross be a great choice for you? We have a variety of opportunities for them to engage with current Holy Cross students. So students can sign up to chat with a Crusader and have a conversation with a current Holy Cross student. I always believe that our current students are our best representatives of what's possible for students at Holy Cross and what a Holy Cross education might be. The fact that we're virtual means that actually the admissions staff is actually able to get to more high schools than ever because they're not actually traveling to the high school. So a number of schools have created virtual college fairs and virtual college nights, and we're participating in many of those. The office has also designed a series of programs over the course of the fall that will replace the in-person fall open house events we have. And so people will be able to plug in and find out, you know, what does student life look like at Holy Cross? What are the academic programs at Holy Cross? The departments have created a variety of videos and ways for students to interact with them, to ask questions about the academic program at Holy Cross. So there's been a tremendous amount of work, and I have to say, it's really early days now, but actually our prospect group is larger than it has been in the past, and our applicant pool right now is larger than it has been in the past. So these efforts seem to be working, and we'll continue to do that work. Of course, another really vital part of the admissions process is athletics and the outreach that the coaches are doing to prospective students and encouraging them to think about Holy Cross as they're moving forward. So I think that in interesting ways, we have been able to expose more people to what it's like to be in the community at Holy Cross because we are doing so much work to create a virtual community at Holy Cross. And so things that might have been hidden if you couldn't get to campus are now more visible because of all the work we're doing to create the virtual, a virtual experience for our current students and for prospective students. So we are, and a lot of that stuff I hope will continue as we move forward, for sure.
There's a more specific question regarding athletics and testing. So somebody who are, testing meaning academic testing. So somebody who may have a little more information. But Marcus, can you speak to maybe what other Patriot League schools are doing, or is there conversation about fall sports potentially playing in the spring? You know, what kinds of conversations are you having with your colleagues at the Patriot League level?
Academic testing or about?
Well, about play, but there was a question about whether or not student athletes, the question about SATs and where that's
right. I can answer both of those. And I typed one of these answers in the question and answer part, but the NCAA actually defined what a spring season would be for fall sports this week. So they just made a decision on it this week, and I think that has to go through the board of directors in the next 2 weeks. But those fall sports that are planning on playing in the spring, their seasons start, depending on the sport, late January to early February. So it's coming around the corner here. But that's the NCAA defined season. The Patriot League and Holy Cross still needs to decide when our student athletes will come back to play. But we do require, or the NCAA suggested guidelines are to require 6 weeks of conditioning and preparation prior to competition. So if we are to compete in late January, early February, with us being in New England, it might be a little bit later because of the weather. We need to get back to campus 6 weeks prior to allow for the proper conditioning. With respect to standardized test scores, because of COVID and a lot of our student athletes haven't been able to take the standardized test, the Patriot League is allowing for this different approach to admissions. So if you can't submit a standardized test, you can submit other things like GPA and your core courses. So they can look at that and decide whether that student is admissible or not based on the other components of their academic profile.
A couple of questions that have come in around facilities and prep for the spring and other things. What have we learned about maybe what other colleges our size are doing? What are some things that we think we might look at? Maybe specifically Margaret and Michelle and Marcus, we could talk a little bit about dining, about housing. Some places have offered hotel rooms for quarantine and isolation. Can someone speak just broadly about kind of where we're looking at some of those items and what our philosophy has been?
Sure, I can start. So our philosophy has been to de-densify our residence halls. So that would be the first piece. And then our plan was and is what we are carrying out currently is for isolation and quarantine to take place on campus. We have reserved Loyola Hall that serves as our IQ space. And folks may be familiar that people in quarantine need to have access to their own bathroom. And that's why Loyola Hall actually makes the most sense for us to do that. The downside of using Loyola is that because it does have the most rooms with their own bathrooms, that is our really strong ADA or Americans with Disability Act, our accommodation space for students who have special needs, accommodations needs. So we have also had to then identify comparable spaces on campus that we can utilize for students who have ADA accommodations. So that would be that piece, and that continues to be our strategy. Certainly de-densification is part of being able to maintain any kind of viral outbreak. And maintaining a IQ space on campus is really helpful because, as folks might imagine, it makes it easier for us to provide meals and make sure that those meals are good ones for our students who are in isolation and quarantine. It allows us to respond to any emergent needs very quickly that might happen, and that's anything from, you know, I forgot my medication, to I am getting sick, to I forgot my pillow. So anything like that, it makes it easier for us to respond to their needs and when they're on campus. And then in terms of dining, right now, the Department of Public Health has barred us from having in-person dining. We are appealing that so that we could utilize Kimball. That would be really important for students in terms of their ability to build community. So right now, Kimball is all grab and go, and students do go. And we have 3 tents set up on campus. There are 2 outside of Kimball, 1 on the Hovel, and students use those for their tables and chairs. And students use those for studying, for eating, for socializing. So those are some of the facilities, things that I can speak to.
Thanks, Michelle. There was a question about events, on-campus events in the spring, things like commencement and reunion, and I can comment and say that we have plans certainly to hold commencement. We need to both hold the commencement for the class of 2020, excuse me, and 2021. So we do have plans, assuming we can gather and the regulations allow us to do that. We do have plans certainly to do that in May, in the normal graduation timeframe. We also hope to have reunion weekends on campus. We desperately missed reunion this past year, I have to say. And we have many volunteers and alums who are craving coming back. So our plan is to have reunion weekends unless we can't. So it is just a matter of whether people are willing to travel. And I suspect many will probably not want to be living in dorm rooms with lots and lots of people and in crowded facilities with 600 or 700 people until it is safe to do so. But we certainly plan to have an on-campus reunion, assuming that the world allows us to do that, and we are in a better place, perhaps from a vaccination perspective as well. So I just want to say that. Margaret, a little bit around some events, but somebody did ask about what we're doing to promote the arts. We've got a new beautiful facility opening up soon. What are we doing, especially since we're all home, to help keep the arts in front of people during this time?
So as many of you know, several years ago, the college launched the Arts Transcending Borders initiative, which was an attempt to think about the ways in which the arts speak to other areas of the world that we're living in. So we bring in a lot of artists, but also ask them to help us think about really important questions that the world is facing. So this year, the focus is on some of the questions that have been raised, social justice questions and equity questions in the country. So if you go to the website and look up the Arts Transcending Borders page, you will be able to participate in the events that are happening, because those events are all virtual. So for example, the first week of classes, one of the Montserrat clusters had a conversation with members of the Silk Road Ensemble about what does home mean. So the Silk Road Ensemble has a beautiful film on how they work and how they came together to form the Silk Road Ensemble, and the ways in which they bring their own cultures to the process of creating music. And they engaged our students in a conversation about how do we understand home and what does home mean. Kahovic Murad, who is one of the artists that works with the Silk Road Ensemble, is going to be doing work throughout the fall semester with our students. So I encourage you to go to the website and look up Arts Transcending Borders. There are a number of virtual events, and we are inviting all members of the community to participate in those events. So it's very important that we continue. The arts are such a great relief for us that, especially in this time, or at least they're a great relief for me, especially in this time.
Marcus, a question, any updates on new coaches in athletics you'd like to share?
We have quite a few this year. I think since the year started on, well, right around April, we have 4 new coaches that we're excited about. A new women's basketball coach, Maureen McGarity from UNH. She was a head coach for 10 years at UNH, also an assistant coach in the league at Army, has a ton of experience. We're excited about her. We have a new baseball coach, Ed Kahovic. He was an assistant coach last year, and it was the interim head coach after Coach Greg DeCenzo departed shortly before the season started, and he hopes to have a baseball season, because I think we played about 10 to 12 games last year. We also have a new women's rowing coach after Patrick Diggins retired after 34 years at the college, Andrea Landry. She was an assistant coach and also an interim head coach at University of Massachusetts. So she has a ton of experience. I think they won a couple of Atlantic 10 championships when she was there as a coach, and she was also a student athlete at UNH. I mean, sorry, not at UNH, at UMass. And we've hired so many. I forget the last one. Basketball, baseball, rowing.
It's a women's sport.
Kyle Bach. Kyle, I have a relationship with Kyle in women's soccer prior.
Yeah.
We worked together at Providence for a year. So I've known Kyle for quite a few years. He's a great young coach. He's looking to fill as a top assistant coaching position here, and he has big shoes to fill. I think Casey Brown did a really good job with our women's soccer program, and he looks to have a season in the spring, hopefully.
Great, thanks. Margaret, a really good question regarding faculty and staff. What kind of initiatives have been done to create a virtual sense of community for our community, for the Holy Cross community, and especially how are we keeping faculty engaged in their academic, work as well?
That is a really wonderful question. It is, as I'm sure everyone is experiencing in every profession, it's very hard to keep a balance between what you need to do for your work and your family. There's no division anymore as you're working from home between when your daughter might need you and when you're on call for your employment aid wherever you're employed. So there are a couple of things we're doing for faculty. Professionally, in terms of their scholarly work, It is hard for faculty because they cannot travel right now. And so faculty who have to do field work can't really do their field work. Most of their professional conferences have become virtual. So again, there's a benefit to that in the sense that faculty it's easier for faculty to participate in those professional conferences, and we've been supporting faculty in participating in those professional conferences. So we're doing a lot of work to encourage faculty to stay engaged with their scholarly peers from other institutions as they're doing that work. In terms of their work in community here, Father Boroughs mentioned there were a number of workshops over the summer for faculty about thinking about the fall and their teaching, and we're continuing those workshops. So, but now there are opportunities for faculty to share with one another what worked in the classroom, what kinds of tricks have you used that seem to engage students better, how do you build community in the classroom, and so those opportunities are continuing through the fall semester. I've set up a series of open meetings for faculty and staff in academic affairs. So once a week, we just get together and they can ask me questions, they can talk to one another, they can ask one another questions. And the academic departments have set up a series of virtual meetings that are mainly just social gatherings, right? So late in the afternoon or sometimes in the morning. We're missing some of the chat, the water cooler chat and the coffee room chat that used to happen pretty regularly. And so departments are being a little bit more intentional about setting up a coffee hour or setting up a Fauci Friday or setting up an opportunity for people within the department just to come together and talk about how things are going, right? And the work that they're doing. So a lot of that is useful because we have to be more intentional about it. And I think that having to think about how we continue to build community with one another is a good thing for us right now.
Great. Michelle, how are we supporting our students of color, students either financially, mentally, spiritually, academically? And I ask because all of us, and I know you're working closely with Amit and Margaret on our anti-racism work, but especially from a student affairs perspective, what are you seeing out there and what are the needs?
Yeah, sure. As I think everybody is familiar that this past summer has been really incredibly difficult for all of us and for the entire country, and particularly for people of color, and our students of color are no exception. So we have been meeting with students. There are a number of fora that happen every week, and students are involved in that. There are faculty and staff who host those, and then some of them are hosted by peer mentors. So that is, that's happening, and the sense of community continues to build for our students of color and for all of our students, frankly. Last night, I'm sad to share that a class on Thursday experienced a Zoom bomb, and so students, faculty, and staff came together in just an hour of support yesterday afternoon, and it's that kind of responsive programming that we had done when we were in person, and we continue to do virtually. Another thing that we have done is, and this is not just for students of color, but for any student who is in need, is we have consolidated all of our emergency funds or consolidated the way for students to be able to apply for those funds. And there is one group that looks at the application, understands what bucket of money might be best suited to support the needs that students have. And these needs range, everything from I need a winter coat to I need books to, I don't have appropriate internet at home. And then in the case for students who are experiencing technology issues at home, there are two options that students have. And our information technology services folks reach out to those students. And if there is a way that we can help them correct the problem, whether it's by giving them a loaner laptop, or some students have been without a video camera, which you really need to participate on Zoom, then we send them the items that they need. And if we cannot, if it's not a capital purchase, you know, an item that we can purchase and send to them, then we have them come to campus. So one of the primary reasons that students are living on campus is so they can complete their academic program with as much support as they need. So we want people to be successful academically, and that represents the bulk of the students who are living on campus this semester.
Great. We are out of time. I'm gonna ask Father Boroughs to close it with one last question, which I think is a good one, and it could be a big one, but it doesn't have to be. But Father, what is the biggest lesson you think Holy Cross has learned in this moment of transition in this pandemic? And then we can wrap it up from your perspective. Oh, you're on mute.
I tried to go on mute earlier to get out of the way, and I cut myself out of the whole conversation, had to come back in case you noticed I disappeared at a moment. Sorry about that. You know, one of the things I think we have learned is that we are a community that is resilient and creative. Mm-hmm. And I think that's critically important for us. I know that every different campuses are doing many different things during this time and have responded differently according to their resources, according to their needs, according to who they are, and we're all trying to learn from each other. And some schools have had to close down. Some schools are fully operational, and I talk to their presidents, and they're praying daily that nothing adverse happens. None of us know what the vaccine situation will be, although in the state of Massachusetts, we know that the flu vaccine is a requirement for all students from elementary school through college. So we'll be administering those very quickly. But I find most of all what brings us together is the creativity of our faculty, of our staff, of our chaplains, of our student affairs professionals to find enormously important ways of bringing us together. And while we hope and wish and pray and are working hard to manage that for the next semester, I think we have learned things. You know, we're not going to go back to exactly the way we were again. I think our whole world has changed as a consequence. But there are many exciting options and things that we're learning at this time that will help us be even more creative. And if anywhere that's going to happen well, I think it's going to happen here. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Father Boroughs. Thank you, Marcus, Margaret, Michelle, everybody else who helped put this together, and all of my alumni affairs colleagues and others who have put together a really wonderful stay-at-home coming schedule of events. So enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you have lots of fun, be safe, and again, thank you for engaging in the life of the college and staying in touch. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.